Unless you've been living under a rock for the past few months, Hugh Jackman is returning to the role of Wolverine in Deadpool 3, despite, retiring from the role after Logan. The official account for Deadpool 3 released the first image of Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine side by side, finally in a version of his comic-accurate classic yellow and blue suit, something fans have been asking for since pretty much the dawning of the Fox X-Men universe. More images from filming are dropping left and right, and with maximum Wolverine hype in effect, I figured it's time to talk about him a little bit on this channel. Wolverine is one of the most iconic comic characters of his time, and you don't get to be a household name and icon by having garbage drip. Historically, Wolverine's costumes and design have fallen at the feet of some of the most talented names in the comic industry. Today, I wanted to take a look back at Wolverine's best comic outfits and who designed them and the stories they debuted in. This isn't going to be every costume, just the most iconic and remembered by fans, aka me. It's my list. So the suit you like best isn't on it, sorry. So strap in, bub, because today we're talking sleek Canadian fashion. Wolverine's first appearance was in The Incredible Hulk 180, and despite the fact that this is credited as his first cameo appearance, his classic yellow, blue, and black suit makes its first full appearance in this issue. Created by Len Wein and the legendary John Romita Sr. with input from Herb Trimpe, legendary X-Men writer Chris Claremont, and editor-in-chief Roy Thomas, Wolverine made his debut sporting his classic threads in a single panel at the end of Incredible Hulk 180. After another month of advertisements, Wolverine's classic duds made their first cover appearance in the comic book every X-Men fan would love to own, Incredible Hulk 181, Wolverine's coveted first appearance. Despite the fact that this is not necessarily a rare book considering it had a decent-sized print run, this book has retained its value over the years due to the rabid fan base Wolverine has had. The suit is overwhelmingly yellow and features thinner wings on the mask as well as cute little whiskers. The shoulder pads were changed from yellow to blue between issues, and the suit features blue boots, gloves, and trunks. When originally getting input, John Romita Sr., who did the bulk of the design and pre-conceptualization of Wolverine's classic costume, stated he came up with the idea of Wolverine having retractable claws. However, some fun trivia here about this is that Herb initially wanted the claws to be part of the suit, which is why they're shown out 100% of the time. The retractable element wasn't added until later in X-Men. Despite the fact that Herb was the artist on the book, he gives the majority of the credit to Romita Sr. for the design. Now, this issue sees Hulk lured to Canada attempting to cure a Wendigo and running smack into the Wolverine. Wolverine tricks Hulk into believing that they're allies to take down Wendigo, that immediately attacks him once Wendigo is stopped. Ultimately, Hulk knocks Wolverine out after an intense battle, and Wolverine flees back to Department H. Wolverine's next major comic adjustment was in Giant Size X-Men, another X-Men comic widely considered to be a holy grail, as this issue introduced a number of other long-standing fan-favorite characters. We're just talking about books I'll never own today. This book introduced not only Wolverine to the X-Men team, but also features the first appearance of multiple fan-favorite X-Men characters. Storm, Nightcrawler, Thunderbird, Colossus, and Colossus' sister Magic all made their first appearances in this book. Again, written by Len Wein, but this time penciled by Dave Cochran, this version of Wolverine ditches the thinner-looking wings/ears on the front of Wolverine's mask and replaces them with giant black ones. It also removes the whiskers from the face mask, which are horrible. However, my favorite element is that instead of having visible irises within his eyes, his mask now contained lenses over the eyes, which gave the perception that his eyes were completely white. It's just a way cleaner look. I never really liked the look of masked Wolverine with his actual eyes visible. It's like he's staring into my soul. Stop that. The story itself features classic origins of many of these new characters, but the main plot centers around the old X-Men being captured by a being they believe to be a singular, powerful mutant. However, it's later found out that the being that captured them is a mutant island, an island called Krakoa, which is a heavy part of the new modern House of X, Powers of X, and whole modern X-Men run. Just Google it, it's kind of complex. Professor X sends an entire new team of X-Men to save the old team, and through their combined powers, they're able to rescue them. Angel even jokes about what the X-Men are going to do with 13 members now. Next up, we have my wife's favorite costume, because every time we watch an X-Men film together and Hugh Jackman shows up shirtless, she's like, ooh, that's nice. The Weapon X suit is essentially all things from the 90s that were cool and absolutely nothing that isn't. The first full appearance of this costume is Marvel Comics Presents 79, which was a monthly comic book that featured multiple stories about various superheroes. In issue 79, they were already deep in the middle of a 12-part short series about Wolverine's early life in the Weapon X program. While many of the elements of the full look debuted over previous issues, this was the first time we saw the complete and iconic setup, including the helmet. The Weapon X suit made its first full appearance on the cover, and this series was the final Marvel Comics property written, drawn, and inked by the massively underrated British author/artist Barry Windsor Smith, who really doesn't get enough credit in modern day. Windsor Smith had been compared stylistically to Jack Kirby throughout most of his career, and the suit was a smash hit and almost immediately began being adapted into other forms of media. The suit even made its animated debut in X-Men the Animated Series just 4 years later in the episode titled Weapon X Lies in Videotape. The story in the multi-part series shows Wolverine being run through a training simulation by the Weapon X program team, eventually breaking free of the program and then violently hunting down and killing the doctors who were controlling him. This also deals with the heavy trauma that Logan endured as part of the program and essentially a living weapon controlled by others, where at the end he wanders off alone into the woods naked and missing a chunk of his past memories, aka me every weekend of college. Now, if you're a child of the 80s and a fan of Wolverine, well then there's a good chance that the first time you saw Wolverine in a comic book, he was wearing his brown, tan, and black costume. This costume was first introduced in Uncanny X-Men 139, written by Chris Claremont and co-written and drawn by the legendary John Byrne, probably the most iconic duo in X-Men history. This costume completely flipped the color palette for Wolverine, toning down the hyper blue and yellow and replacing them with brown and tan. According to John Byrne's own online forum, Wolverine is not fashion conscious, clearly, but he is enormously proud, and if he's going to wear a costume at all, it would be one of his own design. Presumably the blue and yellow was government issue, which would explain a lot, and since he rejected Fang's costume precisely because it was not his own, it makes sense for him to want one that officially declares his independence. Within the issue, the primary focus is on Kitty Pryde joining the X-Men. However, Wolverine abruptly changes his costume, and when asked about it, he basically says, "I felt like it, deal with it." This suit has been reused multiple times throughout the years with minor adjustments made as well. It was featured prominently recently in the wildly successful House of X Powers of X series, as well as Captain America and Wolverine Weapon Plus One. Now, this is what I'm talking about, baby. I'm sorry, but I am a completely unapologetic fan of tactical black suits, and when we look back on the leather-clad costumes of the late 90s and early 2000s, I like to think that this is what they could have become. Wolverine's X-Force costume was created by artist Clayton Crane and writers Craig Kyle and Chris Yost. The setup was used throughout the entirety of Volume 3 of X-Force and carried over into Uncanny X-Force, written by Rick Remender and one of my personal favorite artists, Jerome Opeña. This series saw Wolverine's classic suit modified to reflect the highly Black Ops nature of these two series. Gone are the flashy yellow and blue or brown and tan, replaced with black, gray, and glowing red lenses over the eyes. Truly one of the most badass suits he's ever had. These series both focus on a group of mortally darkened heroes banding together to take on the missions that the main X-Men would not want to be associated with. And during this series, X-Force is responsible for killing multiple people, forced to take out various threats before they become larger global problems. Two particular deaths that in the comics will always get to me are the death of Kid Apocalypse by Deadpool and the death of Daken at the hands of his own father, Wolverine. And the last suit we're going to discuss is the suit that Wolverine has worn various variations of over the last decade or so, his modern yellow and blue suit. And this stems all the way back to Astonishing X-Men #1 by Joss Whedon and John Cassidy. Cyclops, frustrated by the world that fears mutants despite the fact that the X-Men have saved it like a billion times, recommends to the team that they focus on reforming their image. After a fight with Wolverine, Scott, Beast, Emma Frost, and Kitty Pryde all don new outfits and head out to stop terrorists. The suit removed the blue trunks and drastically shortens the wings/ears and shoulder pads. It also added a blue belt and, in various incarnations of the suit, a various X-Men patch on the shoulder. The series was pretty influential, as it also serves as the blueprint for the script to X-Men The Last Stand, wherein a mutant cure was found and the X-Men have to deal with the blowback from finding a cure both globally and interpersonally. And that is about it for today's video. You guys know me, you know I like superhero costumes, but I want to hear from you. What was your favorite Wolverine suit from either live action, animation, or the comics? And if you write the Fang suit, you will be blocked forever, I'm not joking. Thank you guys for checking out this video and getting hyped for the next Deadpool film with me. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, consider liking and subscribing and doing all that other junk YouTubers ask you to do. This has been Nick with Key Issues. Thanks again for watching, and remember the motto, Wolverine over everything.